Hello everyone and welcome to the latest Women in Football's webinar. We're all really grateful to our members for their support and really happy that the webinar programme has been set up for free by Women in Football during the COVID-19 crisis as a way of connecting with women in the network and hopefully inspiring them as well. So the feedback we're receiving from all of you regarding the webinars has been really positive and encouraging for all. And we're really glad that you're enjoying the series. And today, the main show, the main event, we're really happy to welcome Carolyn and Molly. Thanks for joining us, guys. We're excited to have you here and excited to get started. But just to give a brief introduction to both of you. For Molly, Molly was a women's sports reporter for the Daily Telegraph. She's also a keen sportswoman, having played basketball at the international FIBA competitions for Gibraltar throughout her teens. And apart from the particular interest in sports journalism, she also writes about pop culture, politics and lifestyle, and has covered the 2016 US presidential election for the Huffington Post US. So welcome, Molly.
Hey, yeah.
And just to introduce Carolyn as well, she needs no introduction to football fans amongst us, and I'm sure we'll have quite a few on the call today. Her record on the field speaks for itself. She started her career at Hibernian Ladies from age 10 and has since gone on to play for Arsenal, where she won the 2014 Cup, and I was quite lucky to be there in the stadium and celebrate along with you. And then on to Bristol, and to Liverpool as well, where she won the 2016 Liverpool Player of the Year, also winning the Scottish Player of the Year. Since 2018 in June, Caroline signed for Manchester City, winning the Continental Cup and the FA Cup in 2019, and having represented Scotland at all youth levels, she received the first international call up in 2013, just at age 17. So since then, she's gone on to make 71 appearances, scoring 9 goals in the process, and played in the 2019 World Cup. So thank you both for joining us, and looking forward to hearing the interview.
Thanks very much. Yeah, hi Caroline, how are you doing?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm good too. Hi to everyone else joining us. Just as a little kind of thing on logistics, feel free to introduce yourself on the chat if you like, and if you've got any questions you can send them through to us, and right about at the end we'll be able to kind of get to them, hopefully, if we've got some time. And yeah, if possible, obviously please keep everything kind of positive, respectful and polite, and we'll all have a great time. But yeah, obviously football's still on hold, everyone's still on pause, everywhere across the country. How has it been for you? You must be missing being out on the field.
Yeah, definitely. I think it feels, especially feels now that it's gone on a long time. I think at the start it was all quite new, and we were sent programs and stuff to follow for like a 3-week block, and that just seems to keep on going, and we're now, you know, in May, and yeah, unfortunately football's not back yet, but obviously there are bigger things going on, so it's kind of about keeping perspective as well. Of course, we all want to be playing football, watching it, but yeah, there's bigger things going on and people working hard on the front line and stuff like that. So hopefully we'll be back soon, but who knows.
Yeah, I mean it's tricky at the minute, but I can imagine. Yeah, what's it been like for you on lockdown? Like, are you in Manchester? Are you still based in Manchester? And what's a day in the life, I guess, at the minute look like?
It's been quite weird. I am still in Manchester. Decided it was probably easier just to stay in Manchester and train instead of go home and be in Dunfermline with my family. So yeah, in Manchester, it was fine to begin with. City were really proactive at the beginning. They made sure we had equipment, so we got a walk bike and weights. Like I say, programs to follow. So the start of it, the first month or so was okay. It took a bit of adjusting, but I felt quite motivated. I was like, this is a good chance to work on other things, do different kinds of training. Although as it's gone on a bit longer, we actually had a 3-week period of no training. It was kind of downtime. It was more like Pilates, yoga, that kind of thing, which was nice because it made kind of gave me a chance to focus on other things, mentally switch off a little bit. Now we're back into full training. I think it's been difficult for the coaches to kind of plan our training, because we're so used to doing different types of training at different times during the season, and because there's not really an end date, the coaches have kind of had to guess and guess what training is maybe best for us at certain times. So yeah, it's been quite varied, and kept myself busy doing other things, as well as focusing on training. But I think the hardest thing for me has been training alone. I think to find at times the motivation, which I'll be honest hasn't always been great. You know, the thought of doing a certain session, 8K session, and try and make it as football specific as possible by yourself, you know, it's not the most fun on certain days. So that's been a challenge for me. When you're used to being in a team environment, I would say that's been the biggest thing for me.
Definitely. I mean, how have you been kind of coping, I guess, and supporting each other as a team? Like, because I can imagine a lot of your teammates have been similar. I think everyone across the country is kind of struggling for motivation on some level to training. You guys have this extra kind of pressure, obviously, but a pressure, like you say, which doesn't have a deadline.
Yeah, exactly. I feel like everyone is in a similar boat, no matter what job you do, whether it's, you know, working from home or whatever it is. So yeah, we've all been in touch with each other. We're all following similar programs, doing similar sessions. So we can kind of compare with each other, and there's been like a competitive element in, you know, 5K challenge every week, and different things going on the group chat, cooking challenges, core challenges. They've kind of died out a little bit recently, but yeah, there's been various things to kind of keep us interacting with each other. But yeah, you just kind of got to keep taking each week at a time as best as possible.
Has there been any kind of like silver lining, I guess, to the lockdown, either like kind of getting extra time to do something that you've been putting off, or anything along those lines?
I don't know. I think when football plays such a huge part in my life, and when that's been taken away, it's been tough at times. I would say a positive is I've had a lot of time to reflect, especially on last year. That was a huge year for me personally, and I would, yeah, there was loads of cool stuff that went on last year, and because it was just happening so quickly, there wasn't really much time to think about it. So I suppose I've been looking back at things and just thinking, wow, like I was so lucky to be involved in that match, or the World Cup and things. So it has been a good time to reflect and just appreciate what's happened, and also as a motivator to ensure that I can kind of get back to that level and do those cool things once things start to return to normal, hopefully.
And in terms of the program that you're doing in terms of training, have you been able to like actually kick a ball around? Like, do you have an outdoor space that you're able to get to, or yeah, how does that work?
That's been tough. I live in an apartment in Manchester with no garden, so on the sunny days it's a bit trickier, but I have a park near me, and I was saying this the other day, I feel a bit like a 15-year-old again, because when I was that age I would only train 2 or 3 times a week with Hibs, and I would be doing a lot of extra training by myself, just going to the park at home. And I do feel when I go out there by myself and kick a ball, that I do certain interval running, whatever it is, I do feel a bit like a teenager again. And it's just back to basics, which is no bad thing, because they are actually the most important things to kind of keep on top of as a profession, but you just don't tend to do them that much during the season, you know, like interval training by yourself. Yeah, there is a park. I have a boyfriend as well who helps feed the balls to me and stuff like that, which is helpful having a partner to train with. But yeah, that's about it really.
Yeah. Has anyone like in the park kind of kicking the ball around, obviously, has anyone like stopped you and been like sort of recognized you or anything like that? Because I've spoken to a couple of athletes who have said like they've not been recognized, but people have been like watching what they've been doing, like weight training or anything, and been like, oh my god, what this person is obviously in another kind of league.
Yeah, I have had a couple of strange looks. There's this, like a specific warm-up we do, and it's all these weird like ankle mobility pogo type jump things, and you don't look awfully cool doing them. So I think, yeah, a few strange looks as well when you turn up with a bunch of kit, you know, cones, ladders and balls. I feel like people are thinking, wow, you're taking that quite seriously, or they think maybe you're, you know, play at a certain level. So yeah, a few odd looks for sure.
Yeah, it's weird, the kind of, I can imagine, because you've been in kind of an environment where you've trained at the elite level for so long, since your teen years, to kind of go into being in the park. Like you say, it takes you back to your childhood, which I think everyone would love to know a little bit about your path to where you are now at City. You started playing football at what age?
So it must have been about 4.
Okay. And that was your own kind of, you wanted to play football, or who kind of, was it your dad, your brothers, or who kind of got you into it?
Yeah, so growing up, it was all football in our household. I have 2 older sisters and a little brother, all quite close in age. And my older sister wasn't interested in football at all. But my other sister, my wee brother, we loved it. And my dad was big into football. So the weekends used to consist of us playing for our local team. I played in the boys' team. Saturday morning, we'd go down, fully dressed in the kit and turn up, go and play. We all played in different teams. And we'd be down there for hours, come back, get changed, and then where I'm from, Dunfermline in Scotland, we had season tickets to Dunfermline games. So the afternoon was going to watch the football. And then Sundays would be get up, watch Match of the Day, the early show, because it was on too late on a Saturday night, and go out and play in the garden. So weekends consisted of just playing football the whole time, or watching football. And as well, in primary school, I played in the primary school team, birthday parties, it was all surrounded by football. Every Christmas would be a new football top and stuff. So from a really young age, that was a huge part of my life, and obviously still is today.
Yeah, and you've spoken before about playing on kind of, obviously before the age of 10, you played on boys' teams. What was that like? Because I feel like every woman in football has kind of a story about how they were supported by teammates, or how maybe they got kind of weird abuse from parents. What was it like for you?
Yeah, I feel like my story is probably quite similar to a lot of my teammates. I joined a boys' team when I was 5. Obviously didn't think anything of it, playing with the boys, playing against boys. The team I was in was very supportive. A lot of them were in my class at school or whatever, so it was quite a small circle. And I just used to play every week, and my parents never thought anything of it. I think there were maybe a few comments from the side, the classic comments of, oh, they've got a girl on the team, we should win. It was more the parents. It was always more the parents than the kids themselves. They didn't care. So I think my dad definitely heard a few negative comments, but it never stopped me. It never stopped him encouraging me to play. And I loved it. I look back on playing in the boys' team with fond memories, because it was just, it was very carefree and enjoyable.
Yeah, and at what point did you kind of realise, or was it you that realised it, or your dad that realised it, your parents, that you were pretty good, so you can kind of progress a little further and maybe go beyond your kind of local team?
I think I got to the age of 10, and I remember speaking to my dad at the time, and I was like, Dad, like what's the next move here? Girls could only play in a boys' team. I think it was maybe age 12. Okay. And my older sister, I like football, she had joined Hibs, and she was a few years older than me. And so my dad was like, right, we'll take you along to Hibs, we'll see what the coach says, and have a little trial thing. I went along to the first session when I was 10. It was under 13s, and the coach at the time, Ronnie Hamilton, I think he was a bit surprised to see such a young player with a bit of potential at the time, and straight away he was like to my dad, let's keep her here and train with us and play for the 13s at Hibs. And that was the start of my Hibs career.
You played for the under 13s though at 10. That's at that age, that's a pretty big gap. Like, you must have been pretty small, or were comparably small compared to some of them.
Yeah, I was really small up until the age of about 15, 16. I was small in height and just quite slight as well. So I was always one of the small ones, very quiet, very shy as a kid. Didn't really speak to many people, and just wanted to kick a ball around. I was just happy doing that. So playing with the 13s, it was a bit of an age gap, and then moved up the ages kind of a couple of years before, the 15s, 17s, so I was a bit younger. So I was kind of used to being the small one and the young one.
Yeah, and was it kind of intimidating for you at all, or was it because your sister had gone before you, was it kind of an easier transition, I guess?
Yeah, I think definitely my sister being at Hibs before me was helpful. She was very protective as well, so sometimes we'd actually have played on the same team. She was, if anyone came near me and tackled me or whatever, she would be right onto that, and wouldn't have any of that. So I think that was a bit of a comfort blanket, knowing I had my sister there, that if anyone was messing me about or whatever, she would be there to step in. So it was definitely helpful. And as well, I made quite a few friends over time when I decided to speak to people that are still my friends today. So as I kind of went on and got older, it did become a little bit of a family. I was there for 8 years, and my dad got quite involved with the setup and the structure of the club. So it was a really nice place to be, and got a fond place for his.
Yeah, and then, like you say, 8 years later, he gets snapped up by Arsenal. What was that like, signing for Arsenal? Also making that big move as well, down to London.
Yeah, being told I was signing for Arsenal was literally a dream come true for me. I knew from the age of about 6 or 7 I wanted to be a professional player. Didn't even know if it's possible, but people would always ask, what do you want to be? I'd be like, professional. And Shelley Kerr became the manager of Arsenal, and she had been my under-19 Scotland coach, and I was one of her first signings. And so I was straight out of school. I just turned 18. I think I had my prom. I maybe went on a girls' holiday, and then literally the next week I was moving down to London, and I remember it being quite a crazy few weeks. But yeah, it was a dream come true to go into an Arsenal squad at the time, which was one of the best teams in women's football, with the likes of Kelly Smith, Rachel Yankee, Alex Scott, all those players that I'd watched growing up, and I was now training with them. So I think I was definitely a little bit in awe at the beginning, and I didn't quite know how I'd ended up at the Arsenal training ground with those kind of players. But it was a great experience, and I learned a lot from it quite quickly. I had to grow up quite quickly, not just on the pitch but off the pitch, moving to London into a flat by myself pretty much, away from home. It was quite a huge change for me.
Yeah. What do you remember of like that first training session with all these players that you say that you kind of grown up admiring and kind of looking up to?
I remember because it was actually England were at a tournament, so I arrived and all the big players, the big England players, weren't there yet. So I had a few weeks training just with some of the younger ones, or a few internationals that weren't away at that World Cup, or the Euros, I think it was actually. So yeah, I had a bit of time, but I knew they were all coming back, and I knew at some point they would all turn up. So I was quite nervous for it, and then they all turned up, Steph and Kelly Smith and people like that, and they were all super friendly, and it was just great to train with them and see what they were like to play with. And yeah, it was a crazy few months, but I got used to it and settled in a little bit more. But it was quite a lot to take in.
How do you like kind of getting into a session and thinking, okay, now this is like where I'm going to see where I'm at, I guess, against some of the best in the world? That must be so hard to kind of, I guess, compute in your head, like, okay, I need to kind of, how do you kind of get through that and just make sure that you kind of back yourself, I guess?
I've always had quite a lot of confidence, not outwardly, but I think deep down within, how I think about things, I'm quite confident, and I knew it was always something I wanted. So I didn't want anything to get in the way of that. I didn't want anyone to get in the way of that. And I knew it was going to take a lot of work, but I was always prepared to work hard and train hard and prove myself, and that's what I had to do at Arsenal. And I think it was just something within me that was telling myself that I was good enough to be there and good enough to improve. And I think you need that self-belief in everything, really. But at that level, it's quite easy. And there's been a lot of times where my confidence has taken a knock. But it is just about how you react to that, and just constantly working towards what you want. And for me at the time was to get into the first team regularly, playing as much football as possible, and reaching a certain level. So I think I just kept my eyes kind of focused on that. And as well, as soon as you start training, you forget who you're training with or playing with. It's quite simple. It's just football at the end of the day, and I'd trained all these years up until that point to get there, so I didn't want to let it go.
Yeah. And being in London for the first time, what was that like? Because I guess that is a big switch. Were you living alone, or were you living with other players? How did that work?
Yeah, I think that was quite a tricky thing for me, moving from a small town in Dunfermline where everyone knows everyone and it's very comfortable and it's not too busy and there's not much traffic and all those things. Moving to just outside London, it was a huge change for me. And yeah, I think off the pitch, I was super homesick for the first few months. I just missed home so much, and my parents would come and visit, but it's not the same because they always had to leave, and then I would be there. So I did move in with another player. She was a little bit older, and she kind of made friends with the older ones quite quickly. And I was more friendly with the young players that were also breaking into the first team, and they would just go home to their families because they were all kind of London based. So after games, I was used to obviously my dad being there and we'd drive home and chat about the game and stuff like that. But at Arsenal at the time, I would just drive home by myself and go to kind of an empty flat and sit and think about the game that I'd probably not played many minutes as well. So I think, yeah, that was tough at times, and it definitely made me grow up a lot quicker and just deal with things that weren't going my way at the time. And yeah, like I said, I wouldn't change anything because it did make me more resilient and just aware that you have to work hard, and even if you work hard, things might not go your way in football.
Yeah, definitely. Would you say it's kind of one of those kind of big milestones in your life that you look back on and you kind of think that was kind of the making of me doing something on my own like that for the first time, I guess?
Yeah, I think definitely. As much as I didn't enjoy my time, I love training at Arsenal. I didn't play as much game time as I wanted, hence why I moved on. But yeah, it definitely made me more resilient. It made me aware of what can happen in professional football at, elite level, and yeah, things to learn from. So yeah, I wouldn't have changed it because definitely every single move from then, it's been a little bit easier for me just because I had that experience at Arsenal.
Then fast forward to joining City in 2018. That's a huge club to join, and a club that's kind of leading the way in the game in this country in many ways. What was that kind of adjustment like for you as an older player? Not older, but not old because you're still really young, but kind of older than 18. You had a few years under your belt of experience. What was that like for you?
I think it was a move I always wanted to happen. I love my time at Liverpool. I proved a lot of things to myself that I could play, in the WSL consistently and play football with no pressure and things like that. Just enjoy my football and get to a certain level. But Man City was then and still is leading the way in so many ways, and I was like, I want to get back up to that kind of level, that professionalism, that club that consistently competes for silverware. That's where I want to be. So when I moved, it was exciting. I was really pleased to be back. But when you sign for a club, that's kind of just the start of it, and you've got a lot of proving to do and working your way into the team and adjusting to the new squad, and being at a club like City, there is an expectation that you compete for things, and you constantly are encouraged to push yourself. So yeah, first season it was a challenge, but I enjoyed it, and we won 2 trophies. So it was a great time for City.
Yeah, and playing under Nick Cushing, how was that? He's a manager that I think a lot of players that have played under him talk about with a lot of respect, but also like they sort of say he's been very kind of influential to their careers and their kind of game. How was it for you?
Yeah, I've said it before, but Nick's definitely the best coach I've worked with, tactically and technically, and his attention to detail is just like no other coach that I've worked with. So I was a little bit gutted when he left, although it was a great opportunity for him. So he's a great coach, and he's definitely he's got the ability to make good players really good players, and average players decent players. So I learned a lot from him in every training session. If you were feeling a bit tired, that wasn't good enough. There was no excuses with Nick, and the way he sees the game and how he sets his teams up was it was a bit of an eye-opener for me actually when I first moved, and just the structure of it all. But his emphasis as well on just being a technical player. For me, that was huge, because that's always been a huge part of my, I'm not, you know, a winger with loads of pace and stuff like that. I'm a midfielder, I want to be on the ball all the time, and he was huge on that. So for me, it was a great mix, and yeah, he definitely helped me improve my game.
Yeah, and I mean, this season, obviously, he left kind of midway, but throughout the first half of the season, it was a really closely contested league and championship and everything going through the kind of months. Obviously, there's a pause now, but I mean, it was super exciting to watch from the outside. What was it like to play in a league where there's like 4 points between the top three teams? And yeah, I mean, it must be kind of high pressure, but what I guess it must be what you want when you go into football. You want to kind of play at the top like that.
Yeah, exactly. It's high pressure. Like I say, the expectations, but I think going into City, the emphasis on a winning mentality and just following a process is quite a big thing. And I realised that in my first season, and I think this season I kind of got to grips with it a little bit more, and just that, you know, it's all about process. And Nick was not very emotional when it came to football. He was like, we've got a job to do, and if you do your job, like, we should, you know, be successful. So for me, that was huge. And yeah, I think when it comes to the league is getting so competitive every year, which obviously makes it exciting. It's great to play, and that's what we want. And when it gets to the Chelsea Arsenal games, yeah, they are always the big ones that you want to play in, and you know that game's coming, leading up to it in the week. It does feel a little bit different, but also what we've kind of learned, sometimes those games don't actually win you championships, it's the other ones. So last season we dropped points to Bristol, 2 games we drew and didn't win, and that actually cost us in the end. So as much as they are huge games and there's always a lot more attention on those games, it's the other ones, you know, away to Birmingham, Bristol, whoever it is. So yeah, but they're always fun to play in, and yeah, the atmosphere is always good wherever it is, home or away.
Yeah, and I mean, you've seen some really big signings this year as well to the league. You got the likes of Sam Kerr joining, which was really big news, joining Chelsea. Do you feel like the kind of the quality of players that are coming from abroad to kind of play here is testament to how this league is kind of the leading one in the world, would you say?
Yeah, definitely. I think the likes of Sam Kerr and the more internationals you can get in one league, the better it's going to be, and the bigger names as well. It just draws more attention, and I think the way the game has been growing, it's been consistently growing each year. And you can see the results of that. You know, you see the league becoming more competitive, and these big names in women's football, you know, their first option, or a lot of them, the first thought is where in England am I going to go, which is great for players that are British, and being at club at City, you know that they can attract top players. So yeah, I think it's great. The more top players in the league, the better. As well as if they're spread out, I think that's important to keep the league competitive. But yeah, no, it just shows how far the league's come.
Yeah, and in the WSL this season and last season, I guess, who's your favourite City player to play with, and who's your favourite player at another team to play against? Weird question, because you're competing against them, but the league's on pause now, so you can have kind of.
Yeah, I think the player I enjoy playing most with, I enjoyed last season playing with Nikita Paris. She was I liked her mentality. She was so competitive, and she won games for us last season on her own pretty much. So yeah, Keats is up there, but I think consistently the role I've been playing this season is a little bit deeper midfield, and I play alongside Kira Walsh. And I think people forget how old she is, because she's still super young, and she's so consistent, and technically she's all about technique. And so yeah, she's fun to play with, and yeah, she brings so much to the team week in, week out. So yeah, Kira Walsh is probably my favourite this season. And to play against, I don't know if there's like a specific player. I think I like playing against Man United as a team. That's obviously a new rivalry kind of this season, but I think the games this year have been quite competitive, and it's had a derby feel about it, which is always quite exciting, and the games that themselves aren't the nicest maybe to play in or to watch, but it just becomes more about the derby and who wants to win. So yeah, I don't know about a specific player. Any old teammates are always fun to play against, I feel like, or Scottish teammates, because you know them so well. And yeah, I'd say them.
Yeah, and I mean, you brought me onto what I wanted to chat about next. Obviously, the World Cup last year. That was such a huge moment. I can imagine for you to play for Scotland in Scotland's first World Cup appearance. Can you kind of sum it up? What it felt like first to qualify, and then what it felt like to actually be there in France and kind of taking it all in?
Yeah, the World Cup, it was crazy. To get there was a huge achievement. I think I had a feeling we were going to do it throughout the campaign, more so as the campaign went on. But the turning point was we went to Poland and we had to win. And it was a really hot sunny day in Poland, and we're 2-0 down with 12 minutes to go. And we somehow got it back to 3-2, and we won that game. And there was still a few games left to go, but I think if we had lost that, it would have been over. And I think the resilience of the squad and just the ability of the squad was just it was just a bit of a turning point. I think we just started to believe in ourselves a little bit more. And we obviously had a big game against Switzerland, which we won 2-1 towards the end of the campaign. We went to Albania and we won, and Switzerland drew or lost, I can't remember, but that made us qualify. So that was a huge moment. I think from then the attention on our Scotland national team just went up another level. It was huge, and it was an honour to be a part of it, because it was history and a hugely proud moment for us all that have kind of worked towards it for so many years. So yeah, and then we obviously played at Hampden against Jamaica, which was an unreal experience, because having been in the squad for around 6-7 years now, I don't think I ever thought we'd play at Hampden under those kind of circumstances with that crowd. So that was a huge proud moment as a player. And then obviously going to the World Cup, that was a dream come true for me. You always want to play at a World Cup if you like football. You don't know if it's going to happen, but it did. And obviously it was unfortunate the way it ended. But I look back on it with fond memories, and it's a hugely proud success of my career so far.
How do you see, I mean, like you say, it ended kind of disappointingly, but there were so many kind of positives to draw from it as well, I think. I mean, watching Scotland's games, there was so many like tightly fought kind of contests, and you're really like punching above your weight, I think, compared to what everyone's expectations maybe were. What do you take from that? And I guess how far do you see the Scotland team going and progressing off the back of that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I don't like to dwell too much on that last result, and I think it did so much more than we didn't get the group, but just as a team and as like for Scotland itself, it really did put the spotlight on women's football in Scotland, which I don't think it had ever been like that before. So that's looking at the bigger picture, that's a huge positive. And again, it's something to grow on. And I think the expectation now, I think it should be, with the squad we've got and the place we're all at, is to go and qualify for the Euros and then another World Cup, because we're good enough, and we've got the players that are all, we've got some great older players with experience, but we've also got some young talent coming through. We've got a good mix. So playing at big clubs now. So I think, the expectation is just to go on and qualify, and not just qualify, but get out of the group and make a mark on the tournament.
Definitely. And I think the other major tournament everyone's kind of had on their minds in the last few months, obviously now with the Olympics being postponed, it's kind of delayed, but you must have that on your mind as well, that opportunity to go to an Olympics, potentially, depending on how things go in the next year or so. But how much were you thinking about that? And I guess with the postponement, how do you kind of cope with that when things are kind of up in the air, I guess, on the squad? Yeah,
do you know, for the most of the season, it wasn't really crossing my mind at all. But I think before this all, the lockdown and stuff happened, there wasn't a lot more chat about it, whether that was in City or even on camp at Scotland. It was because it was starting to get closer to maybe more selection, stuff like that. So it's crossed my mind, and obviously for me that would be a huge honour to represent Great Britain at the Olympics. And yeah, now that it's been postponed, it's kind of just, it's maybe just gone back to the back of my mind a little bit more, because there's so much football to be played before that, hopefully. And with where we're now with the virus and stuff, like, we can't obviously look too far ahead, and it's exciting, and it's such a unique thing to have a women's team that goes out. But yeah, I don't think it's going to be in my thoughts too much now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can say hopefully there's more football to come in the next few months. I mean, you guys must be itching to kind of get back to play, and hopefully we'll get to see Scotland playing as well as City playing soon. Some other news you've had recently is joining Andy Murray's sports agency, so 77 Sports Management. What was that like for you, meeting him, working with him? I mean, I was there with you.
I was going to say, I met you that day as well.
Yeah, it was cool for me too. But yeah, is it something, I guess, yeah, it's kind of a big moment in the last few months for you, can imagine. Yeah,
for sure. That was a huge positive before all this stuff, and it's been something else to talk about as well, which is nice. And yeah, it was great. It was, obviously you were there the day me and Andy actually met for the first time, and did a bit of press about that. So it was cool, and he's been great. He's at the end of the phone if I have any kind of concerns or questions. He's made it clear that he's not a football coach, so it's more about the physical side of the game, or mental as well. Any advice, and obviously he's a legend in his game in the UK, and has so much knowledge about playing at elite level. So yeah, it's great to be part of his team.
I mean, lockdown, he's obviously been injured for the past few years on and off. He's kind of got the experience of not being able to play for prolonged periods, unfortunately. But has he offered any kind of advice on that? The fact that obviously the last few weeks have brought, I guess.
Well, he has sent me quite a few challenges to do, actually. So that kept me occupied, especially at the start. I think we're all a bit sick of the challenges now, but yeah, he sent me some challenges, so just keeping occupied. And obviously he's focusing on getting back and is fit. I spoke to him at the start of all this, and he just thought there's more time to get in the best shape possible. So I think that's the way you've got to look at it, because we don't know when we'll be back, and we do have to keep as focused as possible, which I know is difficult for everyone at the moment. But you just got to keep that in mind, and yeah, just focus on what you can control and what you can do to make yourself, keep ticking over.
Yeah. And what kind of challenges were they?
I think they're all like tennis, football-y, keepy-uppy type thing. So he would send me like a tennis juggling thing, and then I'd send him back like a keepy-uppy thing. So yeah, that was kind of the basis of them.
That's been fun. I mean, it's been fun to see everyone's kind of variations of those over the past few weeks. I don't know about you, but I've been watching some of them and kind of cracking out, because it's kind of seeing like the behind the scenes of all these elite athletes and the skills that they can't always show us on the pitch, but which everyone else can kind of try, but probably can't do.
And also the amount of outtakes for challenges,
really?
Like when I've been doing something, it takes a lot of time. Well, it takes me a lot of time. Maybe it's just me to get the perfect shot. Most of the time anyway. So yeah, a lot of outtakes definitely.
Yeah, I mean, we've got all the time in the world now, so
this is it.
Now just kind of to talk to you a bit more generally about I guess your career and who kind of inspires you. Do you have any kind of idols in the game, or did you have an idol growing up that you kind of tried to emulate throughout your career somewhat?
I think growing up, my favourite player was Zinedine Zidane. People ask me this, and I would love to say a female player, but growing up I didn't have that role model to look up to, which I think nowadays is changed, and we girls now have, whether it's football, tennis, golf, whatever, they have those more role models to look up to and watch on TV and see more media coverage of them, which I think is great. And I think, that's the way it should be. But growing up, that wasn't the case for me. So yeah, Zidane, he was my favourite player. I remember he scored that volley at Hampden, and obviously it was at Hampden. So I remember watching it on TV, thinking it was pretty sick. So yeah, he's probably my favourite growing up.
And I mean, I think you're kind of right there. A lot of like female footballers and sportswomen generally, like you say, you kind of, now is when there'll be little girls saying, oh, I want to be like Carolyn Weir, and I want to kind of be like whoever, and hopefully that will continue. But for you, I mean, which of the players that you play with then would you say has been most influential on you now? Maybe in the way that they've led their team, or just in the way that they've kind of personally maybe taken you under their wing. Are any kind of teammates that stand out on that?
For me, the teammates that probably stand out are a few of the older ones. Steph at City, Jill Scott. I think I have major respect for them because they played at this level for so long, and they paved the way for so many like us. You know, the younger ones coming through. So they've seen it all. They've gone from, you know, it not being professional all the way to the highest level, playing at World Cups consistently. And I think that's the thing, to play at a World Cup forever, obviously is a great thing, but to do that year on year, you know, every World Cup, every Euros, you're there, you're fit, you're playing, is an accomplishment, and it's impressive. And I think seeing these players train, you can see why they've done that, because their mentality is just, it's just, they're so competitive and they work so hard. So moving to City and seeing these players every day, I would say those two.
Yeah, I think everyone always talks about also like the kind of, even just the fitness levels, like talking about, like Jill Scott, like you say, has been at the top of the game for however long, but players I've spoken to sort of say she's kind of at the top of her game in that sort of respect. She's kind of ahead of the pack anyway. It must be.
Yeah, I mean, Jill's still the fittest in our team. She's one of 2 or 3 fittest. If we do fitness tests, and she'll still be there. And she still runs, you know, probably the most in a game, stats wise. So yeah, I don't really know how she does it actually, but it's impressive to be her teammate and see that, and just what she brings to the team. She's one of those players, if she wasn't in your team, you'd really miss her, because she does a lot of things that you maybe don't notice, but she's quite integral to our team anyway. So it's very impressive.
And in lockdown, I didn't ask you before, but you mentioned to me when we chatted before about that you've been doing a degree at the same time as playing full-time football. Have you had more time for that? And can you tell everyone a little bit about where it is and what's it in?
Yeah, so I have had a bit more time to do my degree, and it's a sports journalism broadcasting type degree, and it should take 2 years, so hopefully it only takes 2 years. So yeah, the thing is with lockdown is, at the start I was like, this is good, I have time, because a lot of deadlines and stuff like that, but I have found it quite difficult to sit there and focus. I think I've spoken to a lot of people that do different, like teachers and other jobs, and they have work to do and they don't have anything else to do, yet like they're not overly productive. So I don't know why that is. I think that's a really common thing in this kind of circumstance. So I find that a little bit, especially the longer it's gone on. And yeah, but it has, I really enjoy my degree, and I've always loved having a kind of different kind of focus away from football. I think that's really important, just mentally, to be able to switch off and do something else, because football is great and I love it obviously, but it takes up a lot of your kind of brain power, and I think you can get a little bit too consumed in it. I think when I was younger I did that, and it didn't benefit me at all. So I was always quite keen to have other things outside football, and right now it's my degree. So yeah, I'm actually really enjoying it.
And do you kind of take, I guess, everything you've learned in football, I guess, about, like you say, about confidence and the confidence that football's given you, I can imagine that's something you can transfer into something like this, like a degree which is maybe pushing you out of your comfort zone in some senses.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting because I studied when I was 18, but because I moved around clubs, I kind of had to put that to one side, and I've just started this degree in September there. So it's weird going back to studying and writing essays when you've not done it in so long, and it's definitely not as confident doing it. If anything football related is fine, but yeah, going back and kind of going back to square one with studying, it's been a bit of a challenge, but I've enjoyed it, and it's all quite football related, and I get to kind of chat to interesting people and stuff like that. So yeah, no, it's good, but it's definitely something I'm not as confident in that than kind of football stuff, for sure.
Yeah, it's something you build though. Like you say, you've been doing football since you're 10. Well, before you're 10, but you've been doing it kind of consistently for so long. It's kind of, yeah, practice makes perfect, for sure. But what kind of advice would you give to anyone kind of watching this about things like self-belief and confidence, and what you've learned, I guess, that football's taught you, and anything outside of that in your life, which you kind of bring to the table in everything you do?
Yeah, I would say for me, the biggest thing was having a clear goal. For me, it was when I was age 4 or 5, and some people find that quite surprising, that I was a 4-year-old girl or 5, and I said I wanted to be a professional footballer, especially with some of my Scottish teammates, because they came to it a bit later and decided that. But for me, that was a huge thing. I think subconsciously that's always been in my mind, and that's just been where I want to go. So of course, it's not been as straightforward as just making it straight to being a pro, but if you've got a goal like that in mind, and you just kind of have to keep focusing towards that, and set shorter, longer term goals, stuff like that, and just make sure you're kind of progressing and improving. That was the biggest thing for me. As soon as I felt like I was standing still, whether that was 10 playing for the boys and I was like, Dad, what's the next move here, or whether it was 15, 16, or even at 21 when I was at Bristol, wasn't sure what I was going to do. I think just keep moving forward, and don't let anyone kind of throw you off your path, or anything, because and if it does, just go back to what it is you want to achieve.
Yeah, it's great advice. I love how at age 10 you were so like, kind of, you need another man here, like, has anyone thought about this for me, because I want to go forward?
Yeah, I'm not sure what my dad was thinking, but I remember, because I had a few more games playing with the boys, he's like, just be patient and we'll figure it out, and we'll get you a trial at Hibs and things like that. So I've always been like that, and it's true to the other moves I've made with Arsenal to Bristol, and I always constantly thinking about what's the next move to get to where I want to be, and still I'm thinking where is I want to go, and how am I going to do it, kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm conscious of time, so I'm gonna head to some of the questions, because I think the chat's been pinging. I've got one that someone sent through before the webinar started. This person said, I'm a sports psychologist, undergraduate student at UCFB Wembley. So I'm interested to know what sort of interactions you've had with a sports psychologist at your league clubs, as well as with Scotland. Do you see them on a regular basis? What kind of mental skills have you learned from them? And what value do you see a sports psychologist having in a football environment?
Yeah, sports psychology is an interesting one, because you've got players that are really interested and think it's super beneficial, and then you've got players that don't maybe pay it that much attention. But for me, I was always quite interested in it. I remember I saw my first sports psychologist when I was at Arsenal. I think I was maybe 19, and I thought, because my confidence had taken a bit of a knock, and I just wasn't sure kind of what I was really doing and where I was going, so I thought it would be better, and it really was. He was a good guy, and he taught me how to deal with things, and what to just focus on certain things and control the controllables, things like that. So it was really helpful, and I haven't seen one specifically since, but there's access to one at City if we need one, which is great. And yeah, I think sport, having your head in the game is hugely important. Just like being physically fit, you need to be make sure kind of firing on all cylinders, and it is important.
Definitely. Thank you for that question. I think we've got another one here. What's the best piece of advice you've ever been given in relation to your career? From anyone in the industry, but also maybe from family, whoever.
I think probably from my parents, they would say you don't get anything for free in life. So they said that to us when we were quite young, and obviously it just means that you have to work for what you get. And yeah, all 4 of us, my siblings, we all have strong work ethics, and whatever it is we do, we all do quite different things. But it sounds a bit like a cliche or whatever, but the hard work thing is it's so important. You see players that are more, I've seen players that are more talented at youth level, and they didn't work as hard as the ones that weren't, and the ones they haven't made it. You know, the ones that were average but worked a lot harder, they're the ones that go on and achieve something, you know, within football. So yeah, work hard. I think that is, there's no substitute for that.
Definitely not. I think proven that in your career. Let me see if there's a couple more. Okay, well, this is a different one. What do you think is the main difference between being coached by a man and being coached by a woman, in your experience?
For me, it's never really been something I thought about. I've had both male, female coaches. It's all about what they can kind of bring to your team and how they can help you improve. Yeah, it's not really a factor that I've worried about too much. I think yeah, it's how they can kind of motivate. The best managers I've worked with is how they motivate a team and how they get a team playing together. And Nick was, for me, the best that I've had at that. I've worked with other female coaches who have obviously helped my career to this day. And Shelley Kerr, she's won at Scotland and she's been hugely successful and got us to a World Cup. So yeah, I wouldn't say it's a factor I've worried about too much throughout.
Yeah. Okay. There's a couple more. Someone said they'd love to hear about the Derby goal and how that felt from Caroline's perspective. As a lifelong City fan, I've seen some moments in our home grounds, but being in the stands that day, it's up there with one of my favourite moments. How was that for you?
Yeah, it's up there with one of my favourite moments for sure. Yeah, I think going back to that day, it was just one of those days where things seemed to have gone right. Up until halftime, I wasn't enjoying the game at all. We weren't playing very well. It was a classic first game of the season, and we just weren't really clicking. And I think we had a lot of pressure on us that day because we were expected to win. It was at the Etihad in front of our crowd. And United, you know, that was our first professional game, so it was kind of all on us. But as soon as I picked the ball up and hit it, I knew it was probably going on target. And after that, yeah, the second half, we all really enjoyed it because the pressure was off a little bit more. And yeah, it was a proud moment, and yeah, definitely a highlight of my career so far.
Did you have family there as well, watching, and friends and everything kind of get down? Because it's a pretty special occasion, like you said, at the Etihad.
Yeah, I had quite a few family members, a lot of friends there. I think a few of them actually missed it, you know, because they were still getting food at halftime, because it's just quite quickly after halftime. So I think some of them missed it and just saw my kind of name on the screen. So yeah, so it was quite funny. But that's classic. My family always miss something at a game, so I'm quite used to that. But yeah, no, it was a proud moment. I was glad there was people there that obviously I wanted there.
This is one for both of us, I think. So you go first. So during this time, what role do you think individual players as well as the media have to promote the women's game, especially in terms of individual content and or coverage of league decisions? Do you want to take that first?
I think for an individual player, it's important to, you know, on social media, to try and keep as positive as possible, and but also be quite realistic. I think it's true that there are days where maybe I've not felt the most motivated, or, you know, a bit down about the whole situation. So yeah, to portray that and just be real on social media and stuff like that, I think is good, and give people more of an actual insight into what you're feeling. With regards to, you know, league decisions, that's obviously well out of my hands, and that's more for the club to talk about, or the league itself. So yeah, that's not something I can kind of comment on.
Yeah, but for me, from the media perspective, I think the main thing is, I think we have a kind of responsibility to do in this is kind of tell all the stories that are happening, and in doing that, you have to make sure that you cover the women's game in the same way as you would the men's. So like you say, with league decisions, and we still don't quite yet know what's going to happen, but yeah, you have to keep the narrative going on both sides, on Premier League decisions as well as league decisions, all the way down the kind of football pyramid, and that includes women's football as well. Yeah, and hopefully, I think we've been trying to do that at the Telegraph for sure. Yeah, and also telling individual stories. I think there's been some amazing stories of players who have been juggling being key workers at the same time as their kind of footballing responsibilities, and I think telling those stories are important too, because it's something I think unique to the women's game in some ways, where players sometimes are juggling kind of two roles, and to kind of tell those stories has been really, really interesting and also really valuable. So yeah, I think making sure you kind of cover all bases, and that includes women's sport in particular. Yeah, we've got another one here from, it's a hello from Scotland. Without a doubt, the World Cup enhanced women's football in Scotland, and as a lifelong football fan, it has been fantastic. What do you miss the most from home other than your family and friends?
What do I miss? What do I miss? I've lived out of Scotland now for so many years, so family and friends is kind of the main reason. Obviously, I go back, and the dogs as well. There's some dogs at home, which
Oh, really?
quite cute, yeah. You know what I miss about Scotland? Just the friendliness of it all. People are so friendly in Scotland. The Scottish people, it's probably the people, yeah. As much as I feel at home in Manchester and stuff like that, I miss going home and seeing people you know all the time, and it does just feel like going home. You know people, and they know you, and you can chat about whatever, and yeah, it's just the friendliness of everyone back home, and just Scottish people in general.
Mm-hmm. It must be weird, I guess, on lockdown, kind of, obviously, like you say, Manchester's your home, that like with every, if everyone you know is kind of everyone in your family is based in Scotland, it must be, yeah, it must have been kind of challenging to make that decision as well, to be like, oh, well, it was weird for me because I mean my family don't live in London, so I was kind of like, okay, how long am I making this decision for?
Yeah.
You don't have like time.
No, that's it. At the start, I was like, of course, I will say that. But now it's gone on quite a long time, and there was various things planned where we would have seen each other, and now it's not happened. So it's it's feeling like a long time that I've not seen them.
Hopefully, Zoom calls can help in the meantime, like this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Knows how to use Zoom now. Never even heard of it before then.
But I know I hadn't.
I think that's kind of all we've got time to get through in terms of questions. So I just want to I want to kind of finish off on a couple of points. Just looking to the future for you. I know the future is pretty uncertain at the minute, so it's kind of hard to do that. But I guess you were talking about goal setting earlier. What kind of maybe longer term future goals you have that you might want to share with us, and kind of maybe kind of might be easier to kind of map out because they're not affected by lockdown if they're longer term, I guess. And what are you looking forward to the most once things improve in terms of football?
Yeah, I suppose the longer term goals are just with City always competing with the trophies, the league, FA Cup, all those kind of things. And with Scotland, it's to qualify for the Euros. That's a huge thing for us. And I think even a short-term goal now for me is just making sure I get back up to the level I was kind of playing at before all this. And I think that's going to be a challenge for all us players because it's the longest time a lot of us have not played football for in many years. So that in itself is going to be a challenge, but I'm sure it'll be worth it when we're all back to normal, hopefully. And yeah, sorry, what was the other bit of that question?
Do you have anything that you're looking forward to the most after this, in terms of football, but then also otherwise outside of football too?
I think I'm most looking forward just to getting back into training with the team. I love training as a player. Some players don't love it, but I just love being at training and being in that team environment. You probably do take a little bit for granted. That won't happen anymore when we're back. But yeah, just to be back with the team and the staff and kind of working towards, the league or whatever it is. And then away from football, it's an obvious one, but seeing family and friends, going back to Scotland, hopefully at some point, and I don't know, having a nice meal or something like that.
Yeah, God, me too. I can't wait to eat out in a restaurant.
I know.
Missing that. But yeah, I think that kind of all we got time for. But yeah, I really thanks so much for taking the time to kind of chat and share what your lockdown's been like, and also go through your career, which I'm sure a load of people watching this might not have known everything about you. Now they do.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. I hope it was of some interest to people.
Definitely, and it was fun to chat again. So
yeah, it was.
This is over soon, and yeah, we'll all be back to watching you actually playing football, and it would be great.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So just coming here and thank you both for a really fab and insightful chat. It was really great hearing your journey and your tips for progressing and improving and getting to live your passion as well. So that was really cool. So thanks for being with us. And just for everyone else tuning in, it would be really great to have your thoughts, if you could share your thoughts with us, to see how you thought the conversation was and how much you enjoyed it, through Twitter at Women in Football, and through email through info@womeninfootball.co.uk. Just to mention as well that the session was recorded and it should be on the website live very soon, and we should be running more over the next few weeks, so look out for the emails in your inbox. And thanks again for everyone joining us, and hopefully see you again next time.
Thanks very much, everyone. Thanks.
Thank you.